Well, Sami Hamdi is an editor-in-chief at International Interest. That's an online current affairs magazine. He joins us now from London. Good to have you with us. So we're looking at a huge drop of barrels of oil produced today. 850,000, some 80% of Libya's production. I mean, what sort of economic impact does that have on a country?
I think, first of all, it depends on what you mean by the economy. I mean, the Libyan people are not exactly feeling the benefits of this oil product or the oil revenues as it is. I think this has far more political ramifications than it does economically, because we cannot really talk about the economy until the war finishes. Khalifa Haftar, at the end of the day, the tide of war has been turning in his favor after he seized the two oil terminals last month. Moreover, I think it's very ironic that he seized the ports and prevented the export of the oil productions while the head of the National Oil Corporation is in Vienna trying to convince businesses to come and deal with Libya. Essentially, Haftar is saying, look, you're not supposed to deal with this National Oil Corporation. We've just set up a National Oil Corporation in Libya. Come and do deals with us. And it's important to understand just how big this actually is. Remember, the international community, because of its attempts at reconciliation between the two parties, it's essentially done away with who is right and who is wrong. It's trying to find some sort of peaceful solution. The problem with Haftar is that, remember, he is backed by Egypt. And in Egypt, he sees a very good example as to how to end this conflict. Sisi used brute force to get rid of a democratically elected president, and now the international community recognizes him as president. So Haftar knows that if he wins this conflict, if he wins this fight, if he seizes the key economic assets that the Europeans want to trade in so badly, which is the oil in particular, it doesn't matter what political negotiation will take place. As long as Haftar can win the war, Haftar will be the internationally recognized leader of Libya. So Haftar is seeing these changes in the tide of war, and he thinks, let's go for it. Let's gamble. At the end of the day, remember, a lot of these EU countries that deal with Libya have their own economic problems, and rising oil prices don't necessarily help them. In terms of stopping the oil exports, this is going to affect them. Now, the companies, and it's very telling that the head of the National Oil Corporation asked companies not to deal with Haftar, because he knows they're considering it. He knows that they're thinking about, look, this war is very complex as it is. It's not going to end anytime soon. We need to make profits. We need these ships to keep going. Why don't we just go sit with Haftar and make a deal with him? And whoever wins in Libya anyway is going to deal with us anyway. So I think it's very telling that he desperately told the foreign companies not to deal with Haftar. And I think that if Haftar can prevent these shipments long enough, companies will go and deal with him.
Well, I was going to ask you that. I just want to jump in, because I do want to find out from you whether you think that this gamble is going to pay off. Is the international community going to abandon the UN-backed Tripoli government and throw all its support behind General Haftar?
I think it's very interesting. I mean, part of my role as a geopolitical risk consultant, you get asked a lot of these questions, and some companies have asked on numerous occasions, is Haftar the future leader of Libya? Is Tobruk actually going to win? Can we actually hedge our risks by gambling on Haftar as it is? Remember, Libya is a big issue for the EU because of the migration crisis, because of its huge oil exports that it relies upon. The EU just wants a solution. It's not interested in who wins the elections or the like. They just want some sort of stability. If Haftar can provide it, they can back them. And the proof of that, like I said, is Sisi in Egypt, who's brought some semblance of stability, albeit relative, in Egypt. In other words, now the EU is thinking, okay, look, Fayez Sarraj is struggling with these Tripoli militias who themselves don't necessarily recognize him. Maybe, just maybe, if Haftar can seize a few more cities, a few more territories, maybe it's time to sit down and talk about Haftar as the future of Libya. This will upset many Libyans, but this is realpolitik. This is how the international community works. This is how the international rules actually work. And Haftar has made, putting all morality aside, obviously, Haftar has made a very shrewd move in showing the EU who's really in control of their economic lifeline in Libya.
Fascinating analysis. Thanks very much, Sami Hamdi, for joining us there from London.